Welcome back to today's Explainer. We're going to take a calm but really fascinating look at the topic of assembly courts. Now, if you're already familiar with the framework of state assemblies and the four pillars, you know that self-governance, well, it's really just an idea until it has a mechanical engine to actually function in the real world. And that engine? It's the court system. Today, we're going to explore the architecture of these courts, breaking down their purpose, their structure, and how they operate to protect rights and resolve disputes.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're going on a top-down journey today, covering 6 areas. 1. Why courts exist. 2. Court structure. 3. Jurors and officers. 4. Grand and trial juries. 5. Due process and flow. And finally, 6. Peacekeeping and our summary.
Starting right off with Section 1. Why courts exist. Finding public justice.
To really grasp assembly courts, the source material suggests we kind of have to understand what they were designed to replace. It's almost like looking at 2 completely different rule books. On one side, you have administrative courts. According to the texts, these were designed primarily to hold agencies and public officers accountable, functioning almost like a fourth branch of government created at the request of the Bar Association. The key takeaway here is that these administrative courts operate under statutes and codes, they're led by judges, and importantly, they have absolutely no jurisdiction over living people or their private rights. On the other side, though, we have assembly courts. These are rooted in American common law. They are fundamentally led by juries, not judges, and their whole entire purpose is to deliver public justice and handle matters of private property and unalienable rights.
Moving right along to Section 2, Court Structure, the Jural Assembly.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is looking at the overarching hierarchy. Notice how the Jural Assembly itself is the organizational unit actively providing court services. It isn't just some separate branch off in the distance. The Jural Assembly actively oversees the grand jury, the trial juries, the various court officers, and literally all the day-to-day functions of the courts. And they run all year long, 24/7, providing constant access to this system of justice.
Because these are set up specifically as people courts, their jurisdiction is highly specific. They deal exclusively with people's business. That means handling private property, private assets, marriages, probate, estates, and protecting those unalienable rights. They could also hear what the texts call mixed jurisdiction cases. That happens when living people or unincorporated businesses have disputes with incorporated businesses or franchises. In these courts, the playing field is meant to be completely leveled. Why does this matter to us? Because this is the mechanism designed to actively protect your physical home, your livelihood, and your family's assets from outside overreach.
Which brings us to Section 3, Jurors and Officers. Who does what?
So we have the structure, right? But a court is literally only as good as the people running it. Looking at the division of power here, it is quite different from what you might be used to seeing on television. Under common law, the jurors hold the ultimate power. They decide both the facts of the case and the law. The justices, on the other hand, are just there to ensure a level playing field, adhere to fair rules of evidence, and maintain due process. Finally, the officers, like court clerks and ombudsmen, they handle all the vital administrative work, shepherding cases, and even attempting arbitration before a trial ever happens.
I want to emphasize the specific role of the justices here, because it's a massive paradigm shift. Actually, scratch that. It's a complete 180 from what most of us assume. In these courts, justices are not necessarily graduates of a law school, nor are they members of the Bar Association. They are simply respected community members, and they never rule on the facts or the evidence. Their job is simply to keep order, answer questions about procedure, and at the very end of the trial, they perform the pronouncement, which is simply reading out loud the decision that the jury has already made.
Let's jump into Section 4, Grand and Trial Juries, Hearing the Cases.
Since the jury holds all that ultimate power, we need to understand exactly how they operate. The source text explicitly states that in our courts, the jury is still king. Everyone in the Jural Assembly, so all eligible state nationals and state citizens, forms the jury pool. By acting in the capacity of jurors, the people are actively occupying their jurisdiction and ensuring that their local standards of justice are upheld.
Now, there is a very clear division of labor here. The grand jury listens to initial allegations of crimes against the public law to decide if there's actually sufficient cause to prosecute. If there is, they issue an indictment or a presentment. And remember, in common law, absolutely nobody can be summoned to court without this grand jury presentment.
The trial jury, meanwhile, hears the actual case itself. They decide the law and the facts, and most importantly, they possess the incredibly powerful tool of jury nullification. This means if they find a law to be repugnant to the public good, they can simply throw it out. It's essentially a built-in mechanism to prune away overreaching legislative activity.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 5, Due Process and Flow, Seeking Remedy.
So how does the complaint actually move through this whole system to seek a remedy? Well, before a case flows forward, it absolutely must meet the strict standards of common law due process. The rules are absolute. Everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. Crucially, there must be an actual, identifiable, injured party. Someone literally has to stand up and say, this person harmed me or my property. Because of that strict requirement, the whole concept of a victimless crime, it just doesn't exist under common law.
So, what happens when an injury does occur? Let's trace the journey of an injured party navigating the system. Step 1. A trespass occurs. The injured party creates an affidavit stating the facts and evidence and gets it witnessed by a notary or assembly secretary. Step 2. Before rushing straight into a trial, there's a mandatory attempt at peace. The claimant sends an invitation to work through an ombudsman for arbitration. If the accused agrees, they try to resolve it privately right then and there. Step 3. If no action is taken by the accused, or if that arbitration completely fails, the claimant takes all that documented evidence directly to the court clerk, files a formal claim of trespass, and the official court process begins.
Which brings us to our final phase, Section 6, Peacekeeping and Summary.
We've seen how a case is heard and decided, but honestly, a court's decision is only as good as its ability to be enforced out there in the real world. Once a jury reaches a verdict and the justice reads the pronouncement, enforcement falls directly to local peacekeeping structures. The highest-ranking law enforcement officer in this system is the land jurisdiction county sheriff. It is the sheriff's direct responsibility to enforce the decisions of the court. And assisting in the broader scope of public safety is the assembly militia. The Assembly Militia functions as a special-purpose committee within the Assembly. Basically, anyone who is fit and between the ages of 21 and 45 is eligible to serve. Their focus is entirely on promoting public safety within the boundaries of their state and providing internal security. They are there to ensure that the community remains peaceful enough for the courts to operate freely.
So, the crucial point is this. According to the source material, the fundamental importance of the state juror assemblies and their jurors really cannot be overstated. By enforcing public and organic law, these courts are viewed as the ultimate essential function of self-governance. They are the shield, designed to protect the people, their private assets, and their unalienable rights from overreach, relying on the common sense and fairness of the local community, rather than distant administrative mandates.
I'll leave you with this final, summarizing thought from today's materials. Assembly courts are intended to provide a community-based framework for public justice, due process, and dispute resolution. It really begs the question, how much more accountable would our communities be if the power of justice truly remained in the hands of the people? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.